The carnivore diet is becoming very popular these days. We see a lot of people on social media, and I've also seen with a ton of students, how the carnivore diet has helped reverse conditions like type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disease, helping people overcome weight loss resistance. Dr. Robert Kiltz, is the carnivore diet the best diet out there for fat loss and anti-aging?
I think the carnivore diet is the best diet for all illnesses of the humanity. And essentially, it's the proper human diet. And weight loss and anti-aging obviously are important to so many people out there. We're aging, and that's normal, and it's okay. By going carnivore, you reduce inflammation. It's the best anti-inflammatory nutritional plan out there. It removes the poisons from plants. And essentially, we're poisoning ourselves on a significant plant-based diet. But we also need to realize that proteins can be glycating also because they're glucogenic. They turn to sugar, essentially. And a protein poisoning is a real thing. So for those that want to lose weight, carnivore helps them tremendously. One, it increases their energy, it makes them feel better, their mind clears up, and they stop eating the drug-addicting plants. Essentially, plants are drugs. And heroin, cocaine, marijuana all come from what? Plants.
Yeah.
And so the idea of being skinny is not a good idea, by the way, because historically, through the evolution of humanity, we suffered from many famines, disease, even reproduction and pregnancy likely was a time of fasting and hibernating. Nesting might be a better term for that, okay? If you look at many animals, especially bears that hibernate, they need to be fat enough in order for that fertilized egg to implant. When they're fat enough, it implants. Then they have to have enough fat, then they hibernate or nest. And so, again, it reduces inflammation. For so many of us, we're satiated by eating fatty meat. And that satiation is like, wow, I feel great. I'm tired. I'm going to rest. I'm full. I don't need to keep on eating and eating and eating. We're hyperphagic. Okay, so we want to eat and eat and eat when you eat carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about the bear that becomes hyperphagic, eating 20,000 or more calories a day in their pre-hibernation time, which is what, late summer and fall, and what is mostly to eat? Fruits and berries and nuts and grasses for those animals. Now they do eat, they're carnivore also, they do eat, they're omnivore, they eat animals, they eat fish and other animals for sure. They eat the fat. The fat contains the majority of the minerals, vitamins, and the healthiest things you can eat, which then also satiates them. Now, I believe for us, because of our mostly plant-based diet, we think it's kind of like time to fatten up and get ready for hibernation. And so our brain is like, keep going, get fatter and fatter and fatter. But historically, if you and I had to go out there and find food different times a year, you ain't finding it. Mm-hmm. And so our problem is that our brain is still thinking, it's getting close to the fall and the winter's coming soon. There's plenty of carbohydrates around. Let's eat as much as we can and get fatter. But now if you go to the carnivore side, which is fatty meat, not lean meat, okay, you must eat the fat. And I think the organ meats are really great, also important, because that's likely where first thing we ate when we killed the animal. Yeah. It's gonna make you feel the best. It's gonna kill the microbes in the gut. Now, the microbes in our gut are not good for us. This idea the microbiome is good, I think it makes no sense, okay? Bacteria and yeast and viruses are the leading cause of damage and disease in this world. If they're in an open wound, is that good for you?
No.
It is not. So, James Henry Salisbury, who Salisbury State guy, was a physician out of Albany, 1850s, Civil War physician, likely cut a lot of limbs off. His men were dying of dysentery and pneumonia, diarrhea and pneumonia. He figured out that the microbes were proliferating in their gut, their colon mostly, and those microbes go out the rectum, the anus, and they go up the esophagus. And so by putting them on a meat-based diet, the microbes were not growing anymore, all right? So we talk about the microbes being great. They're not. Eating fat suppresses them. Suddenly you don't have no more bloating. You have no more bowel irritation. Constipation and diarrhea are prevalent in the microbial overgrowth, by the way. The gut dysbiosis, the bowels stop functioning normally, secondary to the inflammation caused by fermentation of those microbes in the gut, consuming mostly a plant-based diet. And so by going carnivore and eating fat, you suppress the microbes, you feel great again, you're no longer having that bloating. It's reducing all of those microbes that are going up and down, out your rectum, and for women, it's going up into the vagina, which is then causing tremendous amount of inflammation. And we know that women's pelvic dysfunction is humongous. As a fertility specialist, infertility is on the rise.
Yeah.
But it's also affecting men because as the microbes proliferate around the genitalias, it goes into the urethra, travels up into the bladder, and it goes from there. So it's really quite simple, these ideas. You know, how is carnivore good for reducing weight? Well, simply because it makes you feel more satiated. And the more satiated you feel, the less you're going to want to eat. Your brain is functioning better. You can think clearer. And you can listen more to these ideas as we're talking about health and wellness. Because ultimately, we all want to be healthy and well. You need a mind, a clear mind to be able to do that. And the mindset is the most important part of this real story.
It's true. When I do carnivore, one of the first things I notice is my gas and bloating are almost non-existent. I'm very satiated to the point where I find myself doing one meal a day, which is something I know you do often as well. I would like for you to expand upon what you said about plants being poison and the anti-nutrients found in plants, because you ask most people, even to this day, are vegetables and fruits healthy for you? And I don't know, 90 out of 100 people will say, yeah, eat your fruits and vegetables. Probably more than that. And this goes completely against the current dogma we have, or paradigm we have on vegetables and fruits. So share a little bit more to why these plants and fruits are poison.
Plants are live organisms that have been around for thousands of years more than we have. Their evolution and their adaptation to this world is greater than you and I. They can live pretty much everywhere. Their DNA is far greater than ours. Their ability to manipulate their environment probably is better than we even understand. And so plants have evolved with mechanisms to protect themselves, thrive, and survive. They have outer coatings that are capable of tolerating different temperatures, different salinity, pH, and they can survive even fires. And so they've also managed to be able to attract and repel micro and macroorganisms for their benefit. And we know that there are many bacteria, yeast, and viruses that attack plants. Well, plants like you and I have to have a mechanism to kill and or remove those microbes. And so they've developed essentially chemicals or drugs, along with things like heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine, ricin, to just name a few of the molecules made by plants that manipulate many other organisms. And we know that we utilize these chemicals as drugs for our entertainment or for other medical uses or herbal uses. But ultimately, the plants make these molecules, in order to thrive and survive in a very dangerous environment. And name an environment where plants are not in this world. You can't really. And their seeds are pretty much found everywhere. Their pollen is found everywhere. And so why do plants want to be alive and not be eaten? Because they too, like you and I, don't want to be eaten, right? It's really very simple. And if you think about it, carbon dioxide is in the air, and sunlight plus water in photosynthesis makes a long chain carbon particle called sugar. And you think about it, that plants, when you eat them, lettuce, kale, asparagus, broccoli, all the healthy carbs, plants, break down to sugar. And so, for us, those things are harmful, but for the plant, they're beneficial. And so, the basic answer is that plants are live organisms, and they've made these molecules in order to thrive and survive and prevent being eaten. You and I are not herbivores. We don't have a ruminant stomach. So the microbes in a cow's stomach, their four-chamber ruminant stomach, break down the complex sugars into simple sugars so they can be absorbed into the bloodstream to go to the liver via insulin, be converted to fat. Same thing as you and I. We likely evolved eating meat as our primary source and not eating plants. Human beings have figured ways to either cook or ferment or soak these plants in order to increase their palatability and digestibility for human beings.
With the plant-based movement, right, there's a big agenda for the vegan diet. There's these documentaries that come out all the time. A lot of it very much propaganda, fear-based, and when you start to poke holes when you look at the studies, you start to poke holes and you're like, this is actually not what you thought it was. But my question to you is this: there are some people that do a plant-based diet, which is no meat essentially, and it's just vegetables, these poisons you speak about. And they report that they feel better. And I know that over time that might change, but in the beginning, some of them report they feel better. So how do people eat these plants if they're poisons and actually feel better in the interim while they're consuming them?
Heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine make us feel better. So when you eat a plant, you're going to feel better. Plus sugar makes us feel better. And the reason that sugar makes us feel better also, by the way, is because eating the small amount of very ripe fruit at the right time of year was a good thing to do, because simple sugars go to the liver and they make fat, because your brain says make fat, eat sugar. So ultimately, the vegan diet is not a normal human diet, because you cannot survive on plants alone. But you can feel good on lots of things. And then that propaganda, we're told enough times that you feel good on this, right? And human beings have sort of this mental construct that, if you ask me a question, I'm quite often going to answer it in a way that I think you want to hear it, because I want to fit in to the group, right? That's group speak, the propaganda. So ultimately, many of us say something that might not be completely true because we want to fit in. And that might be another reason why so many people want to follow the
trends, whatever it is.
The trends, the propaganda. I mean, we know human beings have followed many crazy dictators through the infinite years of evolution to things that we all go like, why would they ever do that?
That's a good point about the social construct there. I also think, now that you say that, there's also maybe a placebo effect too, because they think it's going to be healthy for them, that they may manifest that from their thoughts. But over time, I do believe that it'll catch up to them. I mean, we see that all the time with people. I never really see people who go from from a animal-based diet to a plant-based diet and stay there. I always see the opposite.
And if they do, it's because that propaganda, that fitting in, because there's a lot of pressure. I mean, our children in schools, politicians, and governments, and commercial entities are pushing the paradigm, and the why part of it is because we all want to fit in. And I did not understand or believe in the plants being harmful. I mean, I enjoyed a Mediterranean diet for years, but I was suffering as a child with depression, dyslexia, migraines, ADHD. As an adolescent, I was in a gang, kicked out of school, a little sort of on the crazy side.
Didn't know that
Oh
about
yeah,
you.
yeah, in LA, and I believe, and now I know a lot of what I know, that all that damage was secondary to plant-based, low animal fat diet. And I want to emphasize the plant-based, low animal fat diet because that's the typical diet we all eat. We do not eat fat. We eat fat very little. Even fried food is not fatty food. It's like saying boiled food is wet food. Boiled food is not wet food. Once it's boiled, you take it out, it drips out. When you fry things, you're only boiling them at a higher temperature. You're not soaking them in fat when you boil when you fry them. So it is a craziness, but plants can be consumed in small amounts from time to time, properly prepared. But of any significance and frequency, we're seeing the evolution of significant damage and disease all around the globe.
Are there any plants that are worse than others, meaning plants that have a higher concentration of these poisons versus plants or maybe fruits that have a lower concentration?
A castor bean plant and ricin was probably a bad one to eat. And we grew up in LA, and we had the castor bean plant all over the place. And my brother and I would be cutting it up.
Really?
And had no idea. And we never chewed on it, so that was a good thing. But certainly there are some foods, plants that are less palatable and more palatable. And think about it. Likely in our thousands of years of agriculture evolution, we've kind of figured out which are less poisonous and more poisonous. So the things we eat or have access to already have been properly vetted because your neighbor or someone in your family died of it, thousands and thousands of years ago. And it's like, don't touch that. Now, certainly wild mushrooms would be one of those that I'd be really careful to touch. My daughter would have a reaction and potentially death from an avocado and a banana.
Really?
So you know of no one that has an anaphylactic reaction to a ribeye steak, to my knowledge. Now, to the actual meat. Now, I guess there might be some beetle or something or bug that got into it, but I know of no one. But certainly there are some that are more likely or less likely. They're infinite ones, but I think you find some individuals that are more tolerant of some of these things than others, but who they are and why they are, don't know that answer.
One of the things I noticed when I was eating a keto diet, not carnivore, but a keto diet, although carnivore you are in ketosis, but it wasn't a carnivore diet. I would do a lot of almonds and almond flour, right? It's very popular in the keto space. This is many, many years ago before I knew about oxalates and these anti-nutrients you speak of. And I remember having joint pain. And one of the things I noticed, Doc, is reoccurring styes in my eye. Mm-hmm. And they were painful. They would last a couple weeks. And I hated them because I essentially had to wear glasses to cover it up. It was very ugly. And I kept wondering, why do I keep getting these styes? Am I not washing my hands after I work out? It wasn't that. It was the freaking oxalates that my body was trying to get rid of. And as soon as I started to research oxalates and I removed the almond flours and all these oxalates from my diet, I haven't had a sty ever since. So have you seen the body manifest, or not manifest, but get rid of these plant toxins in similar ways?
Oxalates, phytates, lectins, latex, gluten are just a few of the glycoproteins which are highly antigenic in our body. And certainly by eliminating the plants and focusing on a carnivore diet, you significantly reduce those side effects. You were talking about Raynaud's. I had Raynaud's for years. I live in upstate New York. Kid from LA lives in upstate New York. It was like
Not a smart move for
it was not. It was not. And I love snowboarding, and it was like, okay, I had to make sure my hands were warm and stayed warm. The moment they got cold, I was done for the day, pretty much. But carnivore, I've been doing carnivore for almost 15 years. I was keto.
Strict 100%?
Oh, no, I'm not. I don't eat only meat.
Yeah.
I occasionally have a cookie, cake, or ice cream, and I occasionally have French fries, extra crispy, dipped in duck grease, mayonnaise, or sour cream.
I like it.
Okay, and so, but again, it depends on where I'm at. If sometimes I go real strict, I do fasting. I typically do only one meal a day. I'll do a 2 to 3 day fast once a month. I just finished a 4-day fast 2 weeks ago. I'm doing a 5-day fast in a week, and I try to do January, July. But it really is amazing that by removing the plants, you remove the 99% of the sugars, the oxalates, phytates, lectins, the glycoproteins, which are antigenic, and then the other chemicals, which are the cause of all these particular problems in our body.
Yeah.
I had arthritis, psoriasis, migraines, kidney stones, bowel bleeding.
Gosh.
Do you think any doctor has ever said to me, "Oh, Dr. Kiltz, yeah, you got kidney stones, or you have hemorrhoids and bowel." I mean, I would hemorrhage, and I'd get a colonoscopy every 6 months. Oh, hemorrhoids. Oh, don't cut them out. Oh, you'll be fine. And carnivore, 30 days, all gone.
Wow.
The most amazing thing I've ever learned.
Wow. I want to share with you my recent experiment with carnivore. As you know, I don't do carnivore strict. You don't either, but no. I'm a little bit more flexible than you. My current routine right now is Monday through Saturday, I'm strict carnivore. Sunday, I'm flexing out with lower plant-based, lower plant toxin foods is what I'm trying to say. So I have identified certain fruits that I could process well if I just have them for a day. If I do them longer, it's an issue. But one day of the week, I'm getting out of carnivore. But a few months ago, I decided to do 90 straight days of carnivore. And I've done 40 days, 45 days. I wanted to go a little bit longer. And I did extensive lab work on day one. So, of course, a full CBC panel, my inflammatory markers, homocysteine, C-reactive protein, fibrinogen, full lipids, including the particle sizes, fasting insulin, etc. Whole panel on day one. I also did a stool test on day one. And then I put on a continuous glucose monitor day one. And then I have an Oura ring so I could monitor like any changes with my heart rate variability, deep sleep, REM sleep, etc. versus when I was not carnivore. I did 90 days, and I felt great, first of all, throughout the 90 days. Like you mentioned, like the brain clarity and that mental boost you get is incredible. My sleep was phenomenal. I got more deep sleep. I woke up less times throughout the night. My Oura ring tracks that. My resting heart rate is usually around 44. During carnivore, it was around 41, 42. My HRV, heart rate variability, increased, showing my nervous system was having a good balance between parasympathetic and sympathetic. And then my labs transformed on day one versus day 90. I actually had Dr. 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝙬𝙎, who was actually here a few months ago, go over it with me because he's a heart surgeon. I think he gives more authority reviewing it than me reviewing it. So he said essentially you were healthy on day one, and then on day 90 with carnivore, you were even healthier, lower risk of heart disease. But one of the most fascinating things was the gut. And I'm curious to share this now because you just said that the microbiome is not what we think. So I'm going to share my results, and I'm going to get your thoughts. When I did my stool test on day one, I got the results back like 3 weeks into carnivore. So I was already 21 days into it. The results came in. And essentially it said that my gut diversity was okay. There was a few keystone bacteria and core bacteria. But they gave me like a protocol in that report saying, eat more plants, more fiber, less ketogenic, less meat. And of course, I did the complete opposite of their recommendations. I was full on carnivore. So most people would think on day 90, when I retested, the labs would get worse. But what happened when I retested the stool on day 90, I had 7 keystone bacteria show up on day 90 that was not there day one, and 6 core bacteria that showed up day 90 that was not there on day one. And my diversity improved as well. And overall, I felt amazing, like barely any Raynaud's flare-ups. I've been pretty good with my Raynaud's as well. So what are your thoughts on what happened with me, especially as it pertains to that gut microbiome test?
Well, there are microbes everywhere. So because we look at their diversity, how do we know that's related to our disease? We tell a story when we find something, okay? And so the microbes are in your bloodstream. Is that good? It's not good.
Sound good.
On an open wound, doesn't sound good. And so we're focused on it because it makes a lot of money. And probiotics, let me put microbes in your gut, okay? Let me put them in an open wound, right? They're there. Is there symbiosis? Maybe. They're eating your food, right? They're breaking down your food. Remember, we don't have a ruminant stomach, right? And the ruminant stomach breaks it down in order to make the access to the complex carbohydrates, right? The ruminant stomach, if you feed a cow fat, the cow dies. Why? Because the microbes die. Fat kills the microbes. So what would your body be like if you killed the microbes in the gut? Now, antibiotics aren't normal for us to consume, although it's probably one of the best things ever discovered by humanity, because antibiotics, antifungal, antivirals can be very valuable in our environment of a very, very high plant sugar-based diet, which allows the microbes to proliferate. And so, just because we measure them, why don't you measure them next week, and see what they do, right? It's like the weather. It changes. We still thrive and survive in different weather environments, don't we? So I still think the microbiome science is snake oil. It's wrong. And I usually recommend my clients not to take a probiotic, not to take a prebiotic, because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's very different. You're a contrarian, my friend.
Well, and I also quite often add a very 30-day regimen of antibiotics, antifungal, and antiviral to help people get pregnant, because you want to kill the gut microbes, because the gut microbes go up the esophagus and out the rectum. Where do they go from there? They go all over your face, which causes acne. They go all over the genitalia, which causes acne. They go into the vagina, into the urethra. They cause a lot of damage and disease. The microbes. And so, again, we read a tremendous amount of scientific papers. Remember, they're paid to write a paper and give us a scientific story, and then we think, wow, that makes sense, right? Well, a lot of things make sense, but that doesn't mean they're right. So I just question it. They're there. Now, might there be times when you put other bacteria into the colon? Maybe so, but I don't know that we've proven that that's always the right answer.
I love that you question things. I can't say we agree all the time, but we're able to have conversations and respect each other.
And that's the beauty of, look, even with the vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, whatever the politics, religion, we always want to have discussion.
I agree.
And that's so important, because that's how we learn and grow. We learn, we listen, and I always question, because it's the science says that we burn sugar and then we burn fat. Well, maybe that's not true. Question it first. The microbes are good. Well, they're good sometimes, but not others. Remember, the leading causes of many illnesses is due to microbial overgrowth, or the wrong bacteria, yeast, or virus in the wrong place. So maybe it's really related to inflammation and your body's inability to properly suppress those microbes that are, or corral them and kick them out in the right way.
What are your favorite ways to test for inflammation? Do you have any?
Your story.
Meaning?
Raynaud's.
Oh,
inflammation.
Got it. So
infertility, inflammation.
Symptoms.
It's always, the story is all you need. I mean, what blood testing did you do 50,000 years ago? None.
It wasn't any.
None.
It was how you felt.
So I would say that 99% of the testing we do is irrelevant. even all this testing to say, oh, I got healthy markers, because ultimately the how you feel is the most important thing, right? If you suddenly drop dead at a young age, something happened that wasn't good, right?
Hey, I want to just briefly interrupt the video you're watching to share something with you. One of my favorite companies that I use for health and longevity and biohacking is a company called 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝙬. And they have a whole range of incredible products, including the blue light blocking glasses you see me wear right now. But one of my favorite products from them is an infrared sauna blanket. Sauna blanket works by raising your heart rate to a workout or a training session. So you burn more calories while you're actually lying down and relaxing. Also, it's going to cause you to sweat. And one method of flushing out toxins from your body is through sweat. There's also one of my favorite benefits, this endorphin release. Every time I get out of the sauna blanket, I feel like I just got a 60-minute massage. So it's easy to set up. It's super convenient. Head over to bondcharge.com/KetoCamp. And if you use the coupon code KetoCamp at checkout, you'll get 15% off your sauna blanket. And actually, any of their products are 15% off with that code. All right, let's get back to today's video.
Now, let's see. I'm 68, almost 69.
Are you?
Yes.
He looks great for those watching on YouTube.
And
Look at him.
I
Look
feel
at him.
fantastic. and I got to tell you, so you're much younger than I am, half my age at least, maybe a little less.
I'm turning 40 in a couple months.
Yeah, 40 is a great age. But ultimately, the younger you understand this or learn these ways, the better you are. I mean, I didn't go carnivore until 55. Now, I was already in the keto world, the paleo Atkins world, but I was a major exerciser, health and wellness freak, but I still suffered. And so, you can't outrun a bad diet, and so, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever learned as a physician. So I went into medicine to help people. And eventually I learned that something's wrong here. Best friend from medical school, Dave, dies at 52. My sister dies at 52. I've seen so many people suffering and dying. Finally came to me, it's like, okay, you're suffering. Some of my patients in the fertility world were getting pregnant on paleo diet. Now, I had no idea what a paleo diet was. So I'm like, start reading all this stuff and learning about it, and like, wait a minute. I started doing it, and then I felt better. And then I met Marie Emmerich, and I ran into keto. And then I saw some dude who was like ripped and eating only meat, and he didn't exercise. That's for me. And so I went carnivore.
What was that?
I don't remember. It was just random at the time. It's like, yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah. And I actually stopped exercising, and I'm like, whoa. I felt better than ever. My joints stopped hurting, and carnivore, my bowels stopped bleeding. And so this is really a game changer. And so realizing that you don't need to adapt to anything, because a human being is a carnivore, essentially, okay? We came out of the trees not to eat the grass, but to eat the grass eaters. We're like wolves and lions. We're great hunters. We're the predator, right? Now, essentially, the plants are the main predator of the universe, but we're working our way to that top dog, and realizing that by going to a to a animal-based fatty meat diet, minimizing the plants in their frequency and amounts, you'll feel better than ever.
Let's talk more about carnivore and some of the things that might occur, some of the troubleshooting things that we've seen. So, digestion. A lot of people think, hey, if you eat nothing but meat and no fiber, like how are you going to be able to eliminate and poop? Won't you be constipated? Could you talk about that?
Well, fiber is essentially carbohydrate, non-digestible, right? So why would you put something non-digestible in your body? This makes no sense. And Burkitt lymphoma guy, wrote a paper after seeing someone with the large amount of stool, thinking, well, that's the best way to be. And he wrote a paper, and everyone loved the guy, and so it suddenly becomes science. But ultimately, we know it's incorrect. It basically ferments in the gut. Fermentation in your gut, your teeth, your gums, your mouth, the esophagus, the entire gut ferments. Fermentation makes heat, alcohol, aldehydes, methane gas. It's deadly for us. And the cause of our children are running around with alcohol in their gut, basically, in their bloodstream, because they're making alcohol. So ultimately, fiber is not good for you. And your bowels are always moving. They don't stop. And so your bowels our bowels, again, not a ruminant gut, is meant to eat the fatty meat. It's readily digestible in the upper GI tract. You'll never see meat in the toilet. So ultimately, it's the best thing you could do. And if you're just patient, poop will come out. You can't stop it. And I poop maybe once or twice a week. No more bleeding.
Really?
Very little toilet paper. And it's the most amazing thing because the majority of what I eat is absorbed into the bloodstream, to the liver, and it's deposited as the building blocks for my body. And so ultimately, plants are poorly digested by the human gut. We are fermenting, and this idea of butyric acid being made in the colon doesn't make any sense to me. You're basically, by eating fatty meat, bacon, eggs, butter, beef, you're getting all the fat and butyric acid your body needs.
What about the opposite, diarrhea?
Oh, diarrhea. Well, the why diarrhea happens is the glycocalyx, which is a sugar layer that is on every cell of our body. And basically it holds water in your bloodstream and in your gut. And this mucopolysaccharide layer is negatively charged. And it basically, the majority of the water in your body is held in the glycocalyx. So when the glycocalyx is damaged, think of a light switch. Or you have these switches that turn on the glass, suddenly you can see through and suddenly you can't. By basically changing the charge, damaging the glycocalyx, you suddenly release the water. Boom, diarrhea. And so when you're going through the change from a plant-based to a fully meat-based diet, your glycocalyx still needs healing, and it takes time to do that. Plus, years and years and years of damage to the GI tract, the glycocalyx, the neuromuscular fibers that are critical for normal motion and motility of the gut has been damaged. It may take years to heal that. It may not completely heal for some people. And the microbes in your gut love you because you feed them with proteins and plants. So they're colonizing.
Plants or fats?
No, plants. I'm sorry. So the long-term use of plants and protein in plants, sugars, feed the microbes.
Okay.
So they proliferate. They create a colonization. And so it's hard to get those colonies out. So they're basically, they're dying off. They're releasing their toxins as you're going carnivore. So you're going to suffer. Listen, in order to build something amazing, you need to suffer. You have this amazing picture on the wall that smooth seas never made a skilled sailor. Basically, when you're changing to get the strength of a lion, you're going to go through some hardships and diarrhea and upset stomachs and moodiness sometimes and depression, anxiety. You're going to go for the withdrawal. And if you know anyone that's withdrawn from any drug or caffeine or nicotine or alcohol, they're going to feel like they're going to die, right? It's real symptoms that we feel in all this, shakes and chills and fevers and migraines and all these things. And you're going to say, oh, I have to have sugar, right? I'm hypoglycemic. I know of no one who's ever died from hypoglycemia unless they were given a drug to make them that way.
Do you have to consume organ meats on carnivore?
I don't know that answer, all right? But I imagine the opening up the gut is probably the easiest thing to do as a lion, or when you killed that animal, you cut the core and you went for the heart, the liver.
They valued it, didn't they? They ate it first. The muscle meat was last.
Muscle meat was last. And so do you need it? I don't know that answer, but I think there's valuable minerals and vitamins. Plus, remember, the liver is the maker and the storage of fat. Now we're talking about adipocytes, essentially, which contain every mineral, vitamin, and building block of your body. So I think it's good. I think it's best to eat the real stuff. But, if you're going to eat a supplement or something like that of a organ meat, I think that's good for us.
What have you seen with carnivore and fertility? Because you're a fertility doc. So what have you seen there?
Well, as I mentioned, I learned this from some patients going paleo, and then I dug deeper. But carnivore diet, I've seen immense improvements, even in women and men with no sperm or no eggs.
Really?
I've seen eggs and sperm come back and natural pregnancies occur when we thought, no way.
Wow.
Now, interesting enough, the birth control pill and the abortion pill, which contain estrogens and progestins, are made from plants. So essentially, men and women on a plant-based diet are eating their birth control.
Wow.
Now, sometimes they just damage the egg or the sperm. Sometimes they damage the ovaries so much, or the testicles, that you're no longer producing eggs or sperm. And it can cause early menopause and sterility in men and women. So that's one thing I think we're not realizing.
Wow. That's fascinating. What about mental health? I mean, things like serious conditions like depression, schizophrenia. We've seen the work of Chris Palmer, right, and how ketones help with that. What can carnivore do for mental health?
Chris Palmer, 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝙎 are my heroes.
𝙎𝙬𝙎𝙎, yep.
And I suffered from depression, anxiety, migraines for years. Think of the brain as another organ of your body. The brain, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the reproductive organs, the muscles, the limbs. So it would kind of make sense that when it's damaged, all the normal functions of the body are damaged. And think of that, we diagnose a significant number of people today with anxiety, depression, suicidality, criminality, and psychosis, schizophrenia. I mean, it's growing in this world, right? And so I personally have healed tremendously mentally as much as physically. Just another organ system doing the job of being able to see and think clearly, communicate clearly as human beings, not see things that aren't there. Yet it's all created in the mind anyway. So there's nothing out there, I say. But I think this is one of the most important things. I actually been watching and listening to 𝙎𝙬𝙎𝙎 for years. And she's always been my hero. Her new book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. And I got a chance to interview her. And again, she's like one of my heroes in life, what she's done. And Chris Palmer, amazing. I do not believe it's simply the mitochondrial damage, because it's not energy. Energy is fine in your body. ATP, no one has a lack of ATP. They're other functions of their brain and body are damaged secondary to the plant poisoning. That's really the single reason. Heroin, cocaine, marijuana. Think about people who take heroin, cocaine, marijuana, and nicotine, what it does to their brain, right? Ayahuasca, psilocybin, right? Are those things good for our brain? Right? It's not. We can't think clearly. We have psychedelic hallucinations. So ultimately, your brain has plenty of energy. Glucose is not the energy for the brain or the body. Glucose is a glycosylating agent. Glycosylation, 70% of your proteins are glycosylated in the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus. Just think about it. The DNA tells the RNA to make a protein in the endoplasmic reticulum. 100% of your proteins are post-translationally modified, glycosylated, ubiquinated, phosphorylated, lipidated, and there are many other things that are added to the protein. How fast are you making proteins right now?
Every second.
Speed of light. Okay? Neurotransmitters are glycoproteins. Glycolipoproteins are critical. And so they're going at light speed, okay? So you've got plenty of energy. The mitochondria is doing fine. The problem is that you're damaging your other functions of the cell. Remember, the cell's job is to make chemicals, hormones, proteins, glycolipoproteins, so this is the critical part that we're not really, we're sort of painting it over in a very sort of light color, but the science is really pretty amazing. Occam's razor, simple answer is the one, but our brain dysfunction, our sensual dysfunctions, our ability to see, hear, taste, smell, and feel is damaged secondary to mostly glycation and the other poisons that plants make to control you and kill you.
I'm sure those watching and listening, their minds are blown, because my mind's always blown when I sit down and chat with you. This is one of those episodes y'all want to probably like rewind and watch a few times to really understand. And you also share your podcast and your resources, by the way, if they want to learn more about you.
drkiltz.com is the very best place to go. Look at YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I mean, I'm putting it out there because as a physician, I went into medicine to help people, and we're hurting people in medicine, unfortunately. And our recommended diet for humanity is controlling and killing us. And only one person can make the change, and that's you. And realizing as a physician myself, my doctors didn't know much about what I'm learning from people like Benazati, Keto Camp. I mean, this is the stuff that I'm learning from people on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, right? It's amazing. We have more access to the science of the human body and beyond today on the internet than I had when I was in medical school. Remember, you had to be accepted into medical school. You had to have the proper credentials, go to the proper schools, right? And have the finances to go to school and get the knowledge in order to be primed with the process and the path in order to be a proper doctor.
You're right. We have access in our phone, more access to this information in our phone, in our hand, than you did in medical school.
I'm reading some scientific papers and I'm trying to find some of the answers, and I'm like, I'm not finding them. I just got my phone, Googled it real quick, it gave me the answer.
Yeah.
Like it really is. We're spending so much complicated time on processes that likely are very simple. The universe likely is very simple in its production and function. We make it very complicated. Eat the meat, be the master. You can eat some plants from time to time, but anaphylactic reactions can happen when you least imagine it. Plus, those microbes, they're hidden in places that you and I can't even imagine. That's what's causing most of our disease. It's the high plant-based, low animal fat, which also comes with all the microbes and the other antigens like latex, lectins, oxalates, phytates, which are causing the damage. And we can make a change, but I can't. I'm only sharing a story. I'm not arguing with anyone. I'm not trying to tell anyone, you better do this. Be a vegan, whatever you want to be. Be you and own it.
I love it, bro. I love it. Do you think, so there's a push there's a global agenda for the world to be consuming this plant-based diet that's engineered meat. I was talking to Dr. Berg about this as well, and it's not conspiracy. There is an agenda by 2030 to have the majority, if not the entire population in the world, consuming plant-based food, and a lot of it is engineered plant-based food.
You mean fake food?
Fake food, yeah.
Yeah, fake food.
Fake food, yeah, to put it in better words.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on them trying to do that? Do you think they have a chance at accomplishing that, or what's going to happen between now and 2030?
The Pope, the priest, the professor, the president, the dictators of the world, the money changers, and it's just a very global story, by the way. This is the fun story, right? Want to control you. And the best way to control you is to feed you plants. Remember the apple?
Mm-hmm.
Don't eat this, but you did, right? Here it is. Now you're addicted to it. So peasants, prisoners, slaves, and soldiers are fed mush because a mush-based diet is easily makes you controllable, right? Don't go to the hunting grounds and don't eat the meat because it's not good for you. It causes cancer. But it also makes you weak and meek if you don't eat it. But when you eat it, you become the master. And I'm not trying to overcome anyone. I simply want to be the master of my life. And by eating plants, I become weak and meek. But by eating the meat, I suddenly control my life. And I'm not out to change the world. I'm simply changing myself. And when each of us realizes that we control ourselves, the mind is the master. The thinking mind controls your world because the world out there is in here. So there may be many things going on in the world, but I see the most amazing world ever created. I see God in everything. Have faith in God within every human being. So our job is to share the word in the way of the master. And the master always went with his heart of love and kindness and the most important vitamin in the universe, which is gratitude. And gratitude for even those that are sharing things that we don't think, wow, that's a little crazy, because we must lead with love. And we lead with the word, which is eat the meat and be the master. And you got to take care of yourself. And when you do that, others are going to look at you and say, wow, look at what they're doing and how wonderful they're doing. I want to feel that. And I believe that the most important part for carnivore, because lions are the symbol of strength, but it's not just physical strength, it's mind strength. So I share a lot about reading and listening to books and ideas and philosophy that are ancients. Thousands of years ago have been sharing this, that the mind and belief and faith in God, and even to the point where everything happens the way it's supposed to. It's all good. It's all good.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. I always say you are a master because you are a piece of the master.
That's absolutely it. Where the drop of water is the ocean, and the ocean is the drop of water. We are all that. There's nothing separate. God is everything. And having faith and belief in God, and whatever religious book you find fascinating to learn and understand, none of them are right and none of them are wrong. They're all part of the same journey of humanity. That's why even vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, all of them are just part of our journey. And each human being is on their unique individual journey. And it's their job to go through the pain, the sorrow, and the ecstasy of life.
Beautiful. Last couple things here, Robert, is number one, I'm writing a new book called Metabolic Freedom.
Yes.
And it's all about the metabolism.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what are your 3 favorite ways to achieve metabolic freedom? I imagine eating meat is one of them, but you tell me, what are your 3 favorite ways to achieve metabolic freedom?
Well,
minerals, minerals, minerals. You hear a lot of people out there speaking about the benefits of taking minerals. And it is important because in this day and age, our crops, our fruits, and our vegetables, they are depleted of minerals. So you've heard of the keto flu, you've heard of symptoms doing keto and fasting. People just don't feel good sometimes. This is the number one reason why. So my go-to for replenishing my electrolytes and my minerals, for enhancing my immune system, for gut support, for detoxification, is Bean Minerals. It has fulvic and humic compounds, and these have over 70 trace minerals and really important electrolytes to replenish your body with. Check out Bean Minerals over at beanminerals.com. Use the coupon code Azadi, my last name, at checkout to get a nice discount. That is AZADI at checkout over at beanminerals.com.
Metabolism, and it's a kind of one of those very vague terms, right? We're metabolizing right now, right? And so the best way to allow my body to just metabolize the way it's meant to be is fasting.
Love it.
So digestion is work for the body.
Yeah, a lot
Your
of
body is taking outside particles, food, and digesting them in a way that allows them to be the building blocks of your body, right? And so fasting is like the number one thing to do. And I typically do a 2 to 3 day fast every month, a 5 to 7 day fast twice a year, January, July. We're doing one on the 8th of July coming up. So join us. We'd love everyone to join. And again, join us even if you only do 1, 2, or 3 days. It's okay. There's no successes because you even show up and you're watching and learning. Faith, mindset. Again, it's just that mindset. I might eat a cookie, cake, or ice cream for fries. Yesterday, I was at a party and I had a forkful of cake. I ate nothing else. I had a forkful of cake just in celebration with people. I drank my sparkling water and that was it. So I think, again, the mindset of metabolism. My metabolism is perfect. How's yours? You look perfect too.
Perfect.
Right on. And faith, fasting, again, faith is mindset. Fasting is don't eat. And we're built not to eat for weeks and potentially months, by the way, right? And pregnancy and fasting is the best thing I've ever seen too, by the way. Absolutely.
Meaning fasting while pregnant or fasting to get pregnant or both?
Okay. Both. We get fat as the building blocks of your baby. That's all it is, right? Remember, when you eat food, you're usually introducing a poison. Nausea and vomiting, hyperemesis gravidera says, do not put that food in this body. This body wants to allow, remember, the fat of the body is the fuel and the building blocks for a baby. A bear hibernates for many, many months. They lose no bone mass, no muscle mass. They lose adipose tissue. So when we say fat, we want to say adipose tissue because adipocytes contain the sugars, the amino acids, the fatty acids, and the minerals and vitamins of your body. So do you need to consume minerals and vitamins every day? No, you don't. They're stored in your adipose tissue. That's the most important thing to realize, that it's all there. So fasting, even in pregnancy, is amazing. And then I was just looking, fatty meat, raw is the best thing you can eat. If you look at Pottinger's cats, Pottinger's cats who ate raw meat and raw unpasteurized milk were healthier and their future generations. Yeah. But cooked meat and pasteurized milk, they were damaged, okay? So you have to imagine that when you cook meat, you're damaging the molecular structure of that food. Plus, you're likely glycating and adding advanced glycation end products, which are basically more poisons to the body that your body has to deal with and figure out what to do.
That's great. Faith, fasting, and fatty meat. The 3 F's right there.
3 F's. And salt.
So
I
salty,
believe
fatty meat.
that salt is critical. If you look at human evolution, where did we find our civilizations growing? Around salt. And we did everything. Remember, salt was the gold, because without it, you could not survive.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important.
Last question for you. You mentioned vitamin gratitude, vitamin G, the strongest vitamin in the world. What I asked all my guests at the end is, what do you have vitamin G for today?
Oh, that Benazati invited Kiltz to come to his house to share a story of health for all of humanity.
I love it. Now we're going to eat some fatty meat right now. Go feast it up.
Absolutely.
At an Argentinian steakhouse.
I'm with you, my friend.
I love it.
If you enjoyed that conversation, be sure to watch this next interview I did with Dr. Robert Lufkin, all about heart disease, metabolic dysfunction, and how to burn fat.
Modern medicine is really treating the symptoms of them. These diseases, many of them share a common root cause that can be reversed